Hello, my name is Jim Lurch. I'm a teacher with Quality Schools International. It's a combination of schools that teach in something like 20 different countries. There's about 35 different schools. I'm presently assigned to, as a teacher with the school located in Skopje, Macedonia. The lesson that I will describe to you involves review for a unit assessment on a unit called the Hebrews. The way that QSI sets up its curriculum is by unit. There are approximately 10 units per school year. Each unit lasts approximately 18 days. So this will be review of curriculum from approximately 18 days of previous, 15 days of previous teaching. We do 1 day of review and then actually take the unit assessment. My class for this course is 8 students. Of those 8 students, 6 of them are native English speakers. 2 of them are learning English, are ELL students. One of the 2 that is an ELL student is actually learning English as a 5th language, if you can imagine. This lesson will last approximately 45 minutes. I will run through the lesson for you. First of all, let me describe what I'm attempting to accomplish with the lesson, and then I'll describe to you what the lesson, how it works, and also how it ties in with the SIOP objectives. Okay, so the first thing is that I work in working for Quality Schools International, they design their curriculum around what are called TSWs, or the student will. It's easy to think of these as content objectives. In this particular case, let's see, we have, okay, we have 9 TSWs, and you see them here. We also have a unit statement. This paperwork is given to the students at the beginning of the unit and is referred to repeatedly as we work our way through these TSWs. On the day of the review, students will have been reminded to review this material by going through the TSWs, turning them into questions, and then asking themselves, can I answer this question? So for example, if we look at TSW 2, the student will summarize the life of Moses and explain his importance to Judaism. What the student would be asked to do is to turn it into a question. So the student might ask himself or herself, can I summarize the life of Moses and explain his importance to Judaism? And then they would actually go through and attempt to summarize the life of Moses and explain his importance to Judaism. Also accompanying the lesson are one language objective that I inserted particularly for developing this lesson plan, and that is, can the student write a thesis that answers the question, takes a position, and sets up 3 organizational categories for that thesis question, and we will actually do this as part of our lesson on for review. The question is, what makes the Hebrew kingdom unique? It's broad, but it should give students a chance to exercise a specific writing skill, which is to take content and use that content to respond to a question. Okay, let me run through the content of the lesson. On the day that we meet for review, the first thing I'll do is when the student walks in, I'll have a brief multiple choice practice for students to sit down and take. We will immediately, and it'll probably be 10 questions, 12 questions, something like that. As the students are doing that, I will walk around the classroom and tape to their backs the name of an important person that we've looked at in either this unit or perhaps in a previous unit if I run out of important names. Then, when they're done with the multiple choice, we will quickly go through the answers to the multiple choice questions. I may have them do a pair and share kind of thing, or if we're running low on time, then I may just read the answer to the question, or have students read answers to the question and make sure they got it correct. Once that's done, then I will ask students to stand up, circulate around the room, and look at the name that is taped to the back of a partner. And then they will discuss, without giving an answer, the person who has seen the name on the back of another will give them clues or answer questions so that the person with the name taped on the back can guess who they actually are. Once we've done that, and that's usually a fairly short exercise because students can guess fairly quickly who they are, but it does give them a chance to interact and it on a meaningful level. Next, what we'll do is we'll set up a physical timeline. I will once again tape time periods or events to each student's back, and I'll hand them a piece of paper, I hand them a piece of paper with an event on it, and they will need to organize themselves into a physical timeline. I will then, as they're doing that, I'll engage in an instructional conversation asking them, okay, well, how does for example, cause and effect questions, change over time questions, main idea questions to make sure that they understand those parts of the lesson. And then finally, for their ticket out the door, I'll ask them to write a thesis that I mentioned to the question that I mentioned previously, what makes the Hebrew kingdom unique. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is how does all of this tie in with the SIOP, or the Sheltered Instruction Observation Protocol. First of all, content objectives have been clearly defined for students. They've been in front of the students for weeks, and so I would say very clearly they've been defined. Language objectives have also been defined for this unit, which is to be able to write a thesis in response to a specific question. Content concepts are appropriate for the age and the educational background level of the students. I've ensured that if they are going to take the exam, that they have at least preliminarily shown me that they've been able to master important content. I have used some supplemental materials, and in this case I'll be using multiple choice assessment, names of important people, names of important events, to augment or supplement what students have already learned about the Hebrew kingdom. The content has been adapted to all levels of student proficiency. These are, I believe, meaningful activities that are everything from very basic fact recall questions all the way up to higher order thinking skills such as writing the thesis. So SIOP 1 through 6 shows that I believe that I have adequately prepared the lesson for student success. The concepts are linked to students' background experiences. We have already, for example, we've we've already discussed the Hebrew kingdom. Students know how all these activities are expected to go, and they do understand what writing a thesis is all about. Key vocabulary has been emphasized throughout this unit as a part of the TSWs, or lesson objectives, content objectives. You'll see down here that we actually have listed the vocabulary, identified it for them. I've done some fairly extensive lessons already on how that vocabulary ties in with the content objectives and the language objectives that have been given to the students. I will, and I do, make an effort to speak at students' proficiency level. I do try and speak slowly and enunciate, although that will be, I suppose, the proof is in the pudding, and I will need to do that on the day that we actually review. Hopefully students, the tasks that I'm expecting them to do that day have been made clear to them. As I say, we have already previously discussed the parameters of each of these review activities so that students understand what is expected of them. Regard to SIOP 12, I am using a variety of techniques to make content concepts clear. What I like about these activities is that it puts the ball in the student's court to be able to demonstrate mastery while at the same time using different types of problem-based learning and hands-on activities. I do think, turning now to strategies, SIOP 13, there are here ample opportunities for students to use learning strategies. For example, hopefully they have reviewed the TSWs before the review session and have been able to ask themselves the question, or turn the TSW into a question and answer that question. This is clearly been scaffolded. This whole been possible had we not worked up to it or toward it from the beginning, which was handing out the lesson or the unit plan, all the way to this point, which is reviewing for the final formal assessment. Looking at SIOP 15, there are obviously a variety of tasks here that end up starting from fairly low-level fact recall questions to a promotion of higher-order thinking skills through the use of the thesis. Looking now at interaction, student interaction, SIOP 16 is clearly, I'll move us back to the activities that I'm using. Obviously with multiple choice that's one-on-one, however, or individual. However, there is opportunity for interaction in going over or reviewing the correct responses to the multiple choice questions. Obviously, there will be discussion there. In the Guess Who I Am activity, that's very highly interactive with lots of student participation. Similarly, with the physical timeline, there'll be a lot of interaction between students. Writing the thesis, we're back to individual effort, but again, we've promoted the activity up to a higher order thinking skill at that point. Obviously, grouping configurations will change depending on the activity. Guess Who I Am involves primarily one-on-one. Physical timeline will be much more of a group-oriented activity. There should be sufficient wait time for student response here. That's something that I'll just build into my job as the instructor. This review, hopefully, if students are using it and in a skilled way, should give them opportunity to clarify key concepts. I do have some students who are better than others at asking questions as we go, and I use that as when they ask good questions, I always try and highlight that for the benefit of other students and commend them for asking those difficult questions that maybe many students still have questions about, but only a few are willing to actually ask the question. In terms of practice and application, SIOP 20, hands-on materials, yes, they have the unit plan. Manipulatives, we will use the taped-on names. We'll also use the events, the little slips for the physical timeline. These activities should allow students to apply content and language knowledge in the classroom. Obviously, they're going to have to communicate verbally and in writing. They're going to have to listen, engage in a discussion, be able to ask questions, think about what's being said, and then respond and so forth. So in that sense, I think it does satisfy SIOP 21 and 22, that we're integrating all these language skills. In terms of lesson delivery, content objectives are set forth in the unit plan, which have been in front of the students from the very beginning. Language objectives are also similarly in front of the students by handout. I don't always, but I may put them on an overhead and emphasize those to the students at the beginning of class if there is time to do so. But keep in mind, students have had this information for weeks already. I do believe that with this review activity, students will be engaged at least 90% of the period in accordance with SIOP 25. This is a fast-paced lesson, but it does coincide with students' ability level. If students had a lower level of ability, I might slow things down by removing an activity and focusing more intensively on one of the other remaining 3 activities. Okay, finally, we look at review and assessment. SIOP 27 asks about comprehensive review of key vocabulary. As I said, we've already gone over this key vocabulary at least once, and in some cases 2 or even 3 times. And in this review activity, we will be reviewing key vocabulary both in terms of particularly in terms of Guess Who I Am and creating a physical timeline, but we will also be reviewing the key vocabulary in the multiple choice, sort of on Bloom's taxonomy lower level thinking, and on writing the thesis, which would be a higher order thinking skill where they're applying key vocabulary into the skill of being able to respond to a question with a comprehensive thesis. SIOP 28, review of key content concepts. This will focus on most strongly with the physical timeline by asking students to make connections between particular events. So in other words, we're looking at change over time or cause and effect. Regular feedback is provided to students. I will work diligently to listen to what's happening in the classroom and respond as needed to students' strengths as well as weaknesses in a hope of constructively criticizing them and encouraging more positive growth in their understanding of the Hebrew kingdom. SIOP 30, student comprehension. This review activity gives me a very good chance to both spot check and test for a group response of the objectives that we have worked on throughout this unit. So thank you for your time. That should, in a nutshell, give you a sense of what this lesson is all about. Okay.